No spin, no bias, no censorship. I'm Dan Wootton. This is Outspoken episode number 371. And breaking today, fury and disgust at the British elite class dismissing Tucker Carlson's declaration of the strange death of England, with Piers Morgan saying he would happily trade in a lot of white English people for a weekly chicken tikka masala.
So it's better. So what about British culture didn't you like and has been improved by new cultures?
Well,
Tell me, what didn't you like before? What are you glad is gone from the Britain you grew up in?
Let me tell you, if you came to London in the 50s and 60s, the food was crap. Come with me to Brick Lane. Come with me to Brixton. I'll give you a proper meal.
I love it. You and I will go to the tough parts of town and eat street food.
I can give you a great meal.
But are you really saying the food?
This is the behavior of a defeated people. This is what it looks like when you lose. This is what it looks like when you're on your way out to be replaced by somebody else.
The argument used. Why should we flood our country with other people? Well, chicken curry. Thousands of young girls get raped. Chicken curry.
And this is now a very clear trend by rich celebrities like Bill Maher and Sharon Osbourne, who have no idea of the reality of life in the increasingly Islamist and unsafe Disunited Kingdom, to deride anyone who wants to preserve English culture and fight the genocide of white Brits as somehow being backward.
86% white to 36% white. Now, this is not a complaint. See, if we were conservatives, this would be like a lament. Great.
It's a fact.
It's a fact, and it's a happy fact.
And if you can't discuss it,
just don't tell me we're living in a year we're not living in. And there's always going to be some people, and we can't hate them for it, who remember the tea shop, and that's their memories of their youth and where they first fell in love or whatever. And so they're going to be nostalgic for it. Mm-hmm. And that you can't hate them because they're like, I don't recognize my country anymore.
Are white people being replaced in the UK?
So what? So what? Wait, so what? Nobody's white. Right. Who's white? Right. Everybody's got a grandparent or a great-great-grandparent or a great-great-great-great-great-grandparent that came from somewhere else.
Okay, this is what you're going to end up with then.
One street, Oxford Circus, on healing the Azan.
People, I'm in the heart of it. I'm in Whitechapel, London. I don't even know where the hell I am. I feel like I just ended up in some other country. There are hijabs to the left of me, hijabs to the right of me, hijabs in front of me, hijabs in back of me. This is another world.
My verdict in the digest next. But also breaking today. The New Culture Forum has announced the tragic death of its founder and director, Peter Whittle, after a short battle with cancer. Now, the United Kingdom is so much poorer without Peter in this world. Personally, I've lost a friend, one of our favourite guests here on Outspoken.
It is extraordinary that you are now concentrating on setting up something to revise its past history.
Well, Chair, that's a characterisation I don't accept.
Right, well, Mr Mayor, all I can say is that the one consolation is that it's very unlikely that anyone's going to be putting up a statue to you.
When love goes, what happens next? It's usually tears and a journey. You know, just whatever you do, don't give up. Don't give up.
And that was his last public address just 3 weeks ago. So we will pay tribute to Peter later with the New Culture Forum's Connor Tomlinson, who will be with me for the entire show. Also coming up today, disgust as it's revealed BBC makeup teams use human fluids on the face of Reform UK leader Nigel Farage. Surely this must now be the end of the British Bashing Corporation. And a racism row on the right as Lucy White says Pakistan-born Naz Ghani shouldn't be in Parliament, let alone the Deputy Speaker. This has been a storm, and Lucy's going to be here for her first interview. Also coming up in the uncancelled after show on Substack, did Meghan Markle use extras in her Thanksgiving Day stunt? We'll examine that extraordinary new claim with royal YouTube sensation, according to Taz. That is over on Substack at the end of the main show. And of course, because it is a Friday, we will be revealing the worst Briton in the world this week. You can get voting right now. In the posts tab on YouTube, here are your nominees. From Monday, Zach Polanski, the Green Party leader. Tuesday, Bob Villan. Wednesday, the Chancellor, Rachel from Accounts. And Thursday, David Lammy. Let me know your thoughts on those four as well. I will read out your comments at the end of the show. But now, let's go. In any other country or culture, the systematic wiping out of the natives through an anti-democratic importation of a rival religion and ethnic group against the express wishes of the host population would be derided as ethnic cleansing or genocide. But in the United Kingdom, it's progress and evolution. And if white Christians dare speak up against it, we're immediately labelled as far-right racists. Well, this week, I believe the establishment consensus on this issue has been smashed by a furious public, as Piers Morgan actually said he would happily replace the white English population in order to have a chicken tikka masala. So just replace the word white there with Asian or black or African or Japanese and imagine the reaction. Let alone if you replace that word with Muslim. Morgan would never appear in the mainstream media again. But because he's talking about white English folk, he is celebrated. We've had enough, though. And this row has all been sparked by Tucker Carlson writing this piece for the international edition of The Spectator. The strange death of England. This is what it looks like when you lose. After his recent visit here this week, he concluded, so in Great Britain, if you were to say, wait, what the hell is this? This looks nothing like the country I grew up in. Guess who's going to arrest you? Your fellow Britons. The ones whose great-grandparents lived here, the whites. They're the ones enforcing this. They're the ones determined to eliminate themselves. This shocked tourists to London this week realised Tucker Carlson, wasn't exaggerating.
People, I'm in the heart of it. I'm in Whitechapel, London. I don't even know where the hell I am. I feel like I just ended up in some other country. There are hijabs to the left of me, hijabs to the right of me, hijabs in front of me, hijabs in back of me. This is another world. I'm shocked. I'm shocked. Look at the businesses, Somalian restaurants, Islamic stores. I mean, it's endless. Islamic relief charities. This is England, guys. This is the United Kingdom.
As Kira just pointed out, tourists visiting Sadiq Khan's Islamic London for Christmas, shopping, walk out of Bond Street Station and are greeted with a haunting sound. No jingle bells or Christmas cheer, just Islamic prayer at full volume. This is not normal. Watch.
I was just about to say, man, I just come out Bond Street, Oxford Circus, and hearing the azan.
But for Piers Morgan, this is apparently all okay, because he never much liked trifle or beef Wellington or Yorkshire puddings when he was growing up.
You're saying that our culture has changed because we've had other cultures come here. Is that your position?
Well, it's not my position. It's a fact. And you just said it at the beginning. So it's better. So what about British culture didn't you like and has been improved by new cultures?
Oh, not well.
Tell me, what didn't you like before? What are you glad is gone from the Britain you grew up in?
Let me tell you. If you came to London in the 50s and 60s, the food was crap. Absolute crap.
Well, it was that way in the 80s when I was here.
Right. Now we have some of the best gastronomy.
Amazing. Some of the most expensive too. I wonder, is everyone eating there?
No, I can tell you.
I paid $1,000 for dinner last
You're
night.
a wealthy man leading a very wealthy lifestyle.
Holy shit!
Why don't you come with me? Come with me to Brick Lane. Come with me to Brixton. I'll give you a proper meal.
I love it. And you and I will go to the tough parts of town and eat street food.
I can give you a great meal.
But are you really saying
I'll take you to the top end of Portobello Market. Right, you come with me. If you want to risk death walking up to Portobello Market, I'll take you and give you some street food and you'll spend £10.
Been to Portobello Market.
Now that quite rightly sparked outrage. Connor Tomlinson, who will be here shortly, responded, how many child rapes are worth that curry, Piers? Because that's not a hypothetical question. We're in the midst of unprecedented, unwanted demographic and cultural change and accounting for the completely optional crimes it is causing, do you really think the food is worth it? Lewis Brackpool of Restore Britain added, Piers Morgan essentially telling Tucker Carlson that it's fine for the English to be replaced as long as we get better restaurants as next level insanity. Not even flinching at the idea that an entire ethnic group, any group for that matter, could vanish just to satisfy a culture of gluttony is evil. Now, Andy the Cabby responded, when people have a gaff in another country and can come and go at will, it's very easy for them to say, and of course Piers does, in Los Angeles. Lewis then added, hating British food has become a liberal psyop to justify mass immigration. Piers replied, I do love a good curry. Lewis kept pushing back, writing, I do too, Piers. But to think it's fine for the English population to be replaced over a Vindaloo is genuine insanity. I do hope you change your mind before it was too late. There was more reaction, watch.
The food was crap. Absolute crap.
Well, it was that way in the 80s when I was
Inedible.
here.
Right. Now we have some of the best gastronomy.
Amazing.
Insane. That is the argument used. Why should we flood our country with other people? Well, chicken curry. Thousands of young girls get raped. Chicken curry. And I know this might shock a lot of people. You're going to want to be prepared for this. But me, as an Irishman, I have made pasta before. I know. Crazy. I'm not Italian, but I know how to make pasta. And even crazier is I have made chicken curry before. Crazy. Absolutely shocking stuff. You don't need a million Pakistanis in your country to enjoy a kebab. I know this thinking might be crazy to people like Piers Morgan, but I would eat potatoes for the rest of my life if it meant my country, Ireland, was always home to Irish people.
And at that point, Piers unfortunately showed his true anti-white colours when Michael McCarthy wrote, they would have you replaced and your home country forever changed over a curry. Piers replied, there are a lot of white English people. I would happily trade for a good weekly chicken tikka masala. And sadly, this is now a common view amongst our liberal elites.
Are white people being replaced in the UK?
So what? So what? Wait, so what? Nobody's white.
Right.
Who's white?
Right.
Everybody's got a grandparent or a great-great-grandparent or a great-great-great-great-great-grandparent that came from somewhere else.
Yeah.
So if we want to insist that only white people can come here, who are they? Like, have you gone too far by the time you get to Russia? Like, do we want Russians? Just because you're born in a country, should you be destined to live your life out in, I don't know, poverty or injustice? Like, I don't believe that you should be denied opportunity because of the country you were born in. I think immigration is vital because without it you become a enclosed, closed-minded, shut down, culturally poor environment.
Is it any wonder they think this way? When we have millionaire celebrities, heroes in polite society like Bill Maher and Sharon Osbourne spreading propaganda that a white England was actually a very, very bad thing.
But in 1984, I remember walking around London like it was all white. It was all white.
But you go outside of London now, but now it's totally changed.
It went from, I read this in Andrew Sullivan's column, it went from, in 50 years, it went from 86% white to 36% white. Now, this is not a complaint. See, if we were conservatives, this would be like a lament. Great.
It's a fact.
It's a fact,
It's a fact.
and it's a happy fact.
And if you can't discuss it...
Just don't tell me we're living in a year we're not living in. We're living in the year when London is mostly people of color.
Yes, it is.
And I'm applauding it.
Yep.
Happy for you. Happy for it.
Okay.
But let's live in the year we're living in.
It's... You go to Windsor Castle, okay? And the town, of course, is called Windsor. And it used to be, when I was a kid, all English tea shops with china, and everybody used to go there for afternoon tea. And you'd go to Windsor Park and watch some polo. And now you go around there, there's no more fucking tea shops.
Right.
None of that.
Right.
It's Arabic restaurants.
Right.
It's Jamaican restaurants. Right. It's Chinese. It is a complete and utter melting pot. And it's great.
Oh, and by the way, if we want Britain to be Britain or English to be English, according to Bill Maher, we're basically just old fogies.
And there's always going to be some people, and we can't hate them for it, who remember the tea shop, and that's their memories of their youth and where they first fell in love or whatever. And so they're going to be nostalgic for it. Mm-hmm. And that you can't hate them because they're like, I don't recognize my country anymore. Because in the Brexit vote, there was a lot of that. People said that. People who lived in England their whole life. And the old village green England's like...
The traditional things have gone.
Right.
But we still have the royal family that is way too traditional. Right. It's way too. I love them, but they're way too traditional. It needs to cut back on the shit.
My message to those people is always, sorry, but that's life on Earth. Things change.
Nothing stays the same.
Nothing stays the same.
If you stay the same, you're left behind.
Now, you don't have to like the change, but you can't just stand there in the middle of the street and go, stop, I am standing athwart change. It just doesn't work that way. Mm-hmm. Change is going to come, and it's going to roll over you. It's how you deal with it.
That's right.
You can move. You'll have to, maybe. Yeah. It's sad. Maybe it would be a better choice to try to adapt to what's new.
Well, guess who's moving, Bill Maher? It's not the old fogies. It's the youngsters. In fact, 693,000 have quit Britain over the past year, even as the government continues to import 898,000 here, including a record 101,000 claiming asylum, including the 36,000 in luxury hotels costing us £15 billion over the next decade. But of course, Piers Morgan doesn't want to talk about that, does he?
This was not a communist country, but I'm just saying Britain voluntarily joined the war. It was a war that you were not involved in and you got in. But my question is, why did it destroy Britain? I don't understand. As the victor nation,
it didn't destroy Britain.
Well, look outside.
Look outside.
We're in the city of London.
Hang on. There's Tower Bridge. It's the Tower of London. Magnificent.
Well, it
office blocks here.
changed London.
Why do you look at this and see a wrecked country? I don't.
Well, I don't see an English country. So we're in the city of London now.
What do you mean there? What do you mean by that?
It's not. Well, people whose ancestors built Stonehenge are not here anymore. So the city of London is 36% white, and that's happened in the last, 40 years.
But England is about 70% white.
England.
Yes.
Okay. Well, it was 99% in 1945.
Okay, so we've evolved.
But you're on the way to becoming the minority in the country. So no one wants to say that. I think you can get arrested for saying that here.
Well, no,
that's not white supremacy. This is the indigenous population of the country.
Well, it's a statistical fact that I think by 2100, we will be a minority white country.
2063 as of today.
Well, I've read a bit later.
But these are dynamic numbers, so they change.
Yeah, but here's my question for you. So what?
Well, let me refer to the beginning of our conversation when you said that the people who live in a country define the character of that country. And then you said, yes, all the things for which we were famous and in which we had pride, like our stoicism, our concern for others, our tidiness, the cleanest country in the world now, it's pretty filthy. All those things change when you get new people moving there. You said that. I mean, you're the racist, not me. So I'm just using the parameters that you set. I
did not say that was down to
you didn't say
non-white people coming to the country.
Well, that's who lived here.
I don't believe that.
No, but that's what you said.
I said there was creaking pressure on public services.
No.
From the increased population.
You also maybe foolishly admitted the truth. You could get arrested for this. So I know the stakes are high.
Paul Joseph Watson wrote, Piers Morgan masquerades as based on every single safe milquetoast issue for the grift. Yet on every single major crunch issue, is a complete and utter twat. Harrison Pierce added, in the end, Piers Morgan is a hack for the regime. He has the odd pop at the lowest hanging woke fruit, but he worships the civilization-destroying basics of the post-war West. Multicultural pieties, a moral fetish for non-whites, and a gluttonous rights revolution well represented by his smug, podgy face. And Leo Kearse surmised, the moment war is back on our doorstep, Piers will have no shame in demanding that the same white English people he sneers at go overseas and die for a land he insists they have no claim to. But Piers wasn't done. There was more. Watch.
But you said that when the people who live in a country change, so does the culture, which is like the most obvious. It's like when it rains out, it gets wet. That's not a controversial observation, but it's illegal here because it is true. And my only point is not against, I've already said, I like the Bangladeshis better than I like the liberal whites in your country. A lot more. They've never yelled at me. I'm not attacking them. I'm just saying the things that made Britain, Britain, England, England. Is there still an England? I have no idea. Those are going away because there are different people living here. And if you think that those are good things in the same way that the Swedes or the Chinese or the people in Burundi and Chad, they like their culture. It's their ancestors' culture. And now it's gone. And like, why can't we say that's bad?
Well, because you may think it's bad.
It's good?
I love living in a very multicultural
But you're rich. I mean, you're rich. And you go
bad.
to the white parts of London, and they're exactly the same as they were when I was a child. I've been coming here for 50 years. They're exactly the same. What neighbor was saying is exactly the
Which
same.
do you think is a white part of London?
I'm not going to tell you.
Well, that's a little test for you. Which area of London do you think is white?
The one I'm staying in right now. The one where my relatives live.
Where?
I'm not going to say.
No, you don't want to say, because you know that I'll immediately say, come on, there's loads of non-white people living there. There's no
By the way,
white,
I'm not against non-whites.
There's no exclusively white area of London. There's not.
And unfortunately, because of men like Piers and Tucker, who is rewriting history over World War II in real time, our elites no longer stand up for everything great we brought to the world. As Tommy Robinson wrote, the British Empire ended slavery. Say thank you and stop wallowing in alleged oppression. There's good and bad in history. Every culture, every race, every country has a dark past, and there was so much worse than the British Empire if you can be bothered to read up on history. I liked this from our friend Based and Bougie Watch.
The British Empire is the darkest shit ever. The Commonwealth, that's the darkest shit ever. British Empire, Commonwealth. That's literally England going to countries and destroying communities.
So Stormzy, you're from Ghana, right? So this is the destroyed state that Britain left Ghana in. Streets are clean, nice houses and cars everywhere. Just look at that, so destroyed. Oh my God. This is Lagos, right after the British Empire left. Look at the destroyed churches and the destroyed skyscrapers. Like, how dare they build skyscrapers and churches for people to pray in? Look how they destroyed the streets. No heavy traffic, no 1 hour queues of traffic. They destroyed the streets so much that people were comfortable enough to walk barefoot. How dare they clean the streets? Look at how they destroyed Delhi, India. Look at how dare they build these trains and these buildings that still exist today, by the way.
Opening our days, it was better. Really? Our gutters were clean as what word will I use? Everything true. The gutters were clean.
But instead of celebrating what it's meant to be English, what the British Empire has brought to the world, suicidal empathy means it's now being left to foreigners to explain the perilous state we now find ourselves. This was Tucker's damning summary.
And here's what you recognize. The people of Great Britain are going through a series of crises, and they're all internal. Drug use, alcohol use, their appearance has changed. People are no longer as well kept. The streets, the landscape is not tidy anymore. It's got lots of litter and graffiti in some places. And to technocrats, these are not meaningful measures of anything. Who cares if you've got graffiti? Does that affect GDP? Oh, well, maybe, maybe not. But it's definitely a reflection of how people feel about themselves. People with self-respect do not tolerate public displays of disorder or filth or graffiti or litter because they care about themselves and their family. And they understand intuitively, as every human being does, that once you allow chaos and filth in your immediate environment, you are diminished. So you just don't allow that, and no healthy society does. But all through the West, these are not just features, they're defining features. All Western cities are filled with litter and graffiti and people who look like they didn't bother to get dressed this morning, but are instead wearing their pajamas in Walmart. It's not just in your town, it's everywhere in what we refer to as the West. The point that underlies all of this is a really obvious one that too few people say. This is the behavior of a defeated people. This is what it looks like when you lose. This is what it looks like when you're on your way out to be replaced by somebody else.
And now, Connor Tomlinson is here. And Connor, who is the host of Tomlinson Talks on YouTube, posted yesterday this very disturbing image, writing, "Photo taken today. This man was defecating behind Queen Caroline's Temple in Kensington Gardens near Hyde Park, a monument to King George II's wife who commissioned royal parks in the Serpentine Lake is now a toilet for third worlders. There are also homeless encampments in Hyde Park. We don't have to live like this." But according to Piers Morgan, Connor, that's just evolution. That's just evolution, and we should be happy about it.
Every day, Dan brings a brand new scene from the dystopian novel, The Camp of the Saints, which, was called the most racist book on earth until it turns out to have been proven right too soon. There's a passage right from the opening where there's a leftist gloating about the fact that a ship, the Calcutta Star, is about to bring 1 million Indians to Europe. And this is treated like an apocalyptic event when instead it's just an annual migration number in Britain now. But the quote goes something like, "Your civilization has no meaning to them. They will be tired. They will be cold. They will use your beautiful oak door for firewood." And that's what's happening to all of our monuments, our cities, our culture, our heritage, our identity, and our country. And Piers Morgan thinks that's a good thing so he can fill his fat gullet with foreign slop. Now, I've got lots of thoughts on this, but first let me just say, no, I think British food is wonderful. I think that everything from stews to desserts to roast potatoes to beef to lamb is excellent. It was actually quintessential to the nutrition of our people that made us higher IQ and in better health than most of the rest of the world, according to Alan McFarlane, who pored over our historical records stretching way back to the Middle Ages. So, yeah, agree with Lewis there, the tweet you've got on screen. It is just a psyop to get you to sell out your own civilization to demographic replacement. And so I don't care what cuisine Piers Morgan would prefer. I would prefer to have a country imparted off onto the children that I hope to have soon that is recognizable to the one built by my ancestors who made many sacrifices in order to sustain it. And so I absolutely despise what Piers Morgan said. And the thing is, the even more gross thing is, I don't think he actually believes it. I think that he just says whatever he can to drive outrage and clicks, because he knows that having just contentious clickbait slop produced on his channel, much like the sort of stuff that he claims to prefer eating, is what drives engagement, drives monetization. And so he's just a total attention hound. But whether or not it is sincere, it will be remembered as the sales pitch for not just demographic replacement that we voted against consistently in every election and referendum since 1974, but the ongoing and optional crimes committed against our people. There's a rape reported in London every hour, and over 50% of those are committed by foreign men. There are murders happening every single day, and those are just the ones that reach the headlines. Many more will go unreported by a man of no fixed abode. And then there are just the aesthetic crimes like the one that you saw and flashed up on screen, the photo that was forwarded to me by a family member yesterday. All of our monuments are just literally being defaced and defecated on by people out of spite or out of habit. And so that's one thing I will add as well. I like Tucker. I listen to his show. He's got an excellent interview coming up next week that people are going to enjoy from his time in Britain.
Oh, yes.
However, when Tucker says, "Oh, I like the Bangladeshis more than the white women," no, sorry, because even if our people are mistaken for a period of time, they are captured by ideology, we can recover from ideological capture. We can recover from economic impoverishment. We did in the 70s. Hungary did under the Soviet Union. We can't recover from demographic replacement. And so I'm afraid I don't care how much the Bangladeshis living in Whitechapel are nice and personable and polite. They don't share my language, they don't share my religion, they don't share my culture, they don't share my heritage, they will not reproduce my civilization. And so I have reached the point now where they just all have to go, I'm afraid. They have to go.
Now, this X post, which seems to have exploded this whole issue, Connor, I do think it is just worth looking at closely. Piers Morgan says there are a lot of white English people I would happily trade for a good weekly chicken tikka masala. Now, just imagine, Connor, for 1 second, if that word white were replaced by virtually any other ethnicity, any other religious group. You know, Muslim people, black people, Jamaican people, Japanese people. Piers Morgan would be cancelled. I mean, it is also time, is it not, for us to start standing up against blatant anti-white racism?
Yeah, this is ethnocidal rhetoric with humour as its window dressing. And I tweeted out in response to this, imagine if a Jewish Israeli news anchor had gone on air and said, I'm happy to displace and trade 1 million Palestinians just to keep shakshuka. Well, Piers Morgan would have made a week's worth of clickbait debate content about it and farmed thousands of pounds in YouTube revenue. But when he says it about white people, it's okay and it's not an outrage at all. And if I may, Dan, respond on the other side to this with a very contentious comment, I'm sure, to the clips by Sharon Osbourne and Bill Maher.
Yes.
Now, it won't have escaped people's attention that yes, they're very wealthy, they've got homes in Los Angeles, but both of them are Jewish. They are both Zionists, and they would not say the same thing if mass demographic replacement happened in Israel. The state of Israel would cease to exist if it were not majority Jewish. Even if they dipped down by 10% with the flooding of their borders by their Arab neighbours, it would be considered an existential threat. So why do they have a completely different double standard for America, for Europe, and for Britain? Why do they not see the election of Zoran Mandani or Sadiq Khan as being an outgrowth, not of insane socialism or wokeism, but demographics? Why do they not see the rise in anti-Jewish hatred by the left as a consequence of demographics? And why do they not see, by the way, the rise of, for example, Nick Fuentes, who complains about mass demographic replacement and notes there are a lot of Jewish people involved in left-wing movements as a result of not just the demographic replacement they support, but the double standard that they, as Jewish people, put out there by saying Israel has a right to protect its demographics, but if white people are being replaced, well, that's something to celebrate. It just can't continue.
Oh, by the way, and Piers Morgan now says, oh yeah, I'm going to be really brave and interview Nick Fuentes once, as people like Harrison Pitt and Paul Joseph Watson were pointing out, once he's already been mainstreamed by Tucker Carlson. There's nothing brave about that, Piers. It would have been brave if you did it 2 months ago. This has got to be the end of the BBC. Seriously, I'm not even joking. This is now so despicable and so disgusting that this organisation needs to be shut down. I'm not exaggerating. I'm not using hyperbole. I have had enough. This latest revelation made me feel ill this morning. Makeup artists at the British Bashing Corporation are now using human fluids, including saliva, but not limited to saliva. And I'm not going to go into the details. You can use your imagination. When Farage is being made up to appear as he regularly does on BBC News programmes. I'm done. I am done with these cretins who we pay for. This is a disgrace. It will be laughed off and dismissed by the mainstream media, but I 100% believe that it is happening. So I'm going to take you through exactly how we've got to this revelation becoming public. It's thanks to work by The Critic and the Daily Mail. So here's Richard Eden reporting today that makeup artists use bodily fluids on Farage during BBC appearances. And he writes, the BBC has been making a song and dance this week about comments Nigel Farage may or may not have made in the school playground when he was a child. Now it has been alleged that its makeup artists have taken unpleasant action against the Reform UK leader. Historian and best-selling author Lisa Hilton, who has presented BBC TV documentaries, has made the extraordinary claim that Farage's face was painted with deliberately contaminated brushes when appearing on its programmes. Explaining that she has heard this from a morning news veteran, the well-connected Hilton writes in The Critic magazine, naming no names, but Nigel Farage might want to start doing his own face, giving the extraordinary imaginative range of natural cosmetics which the brushes are loaded with when he's in the chair. And then Richard Eden, who has done his own work on this, writes, I'm told These natural cosmetics allegedly include human saliva and other bodily fluids. Farage declines to comment, but such alleged spite, Richard Eden goes on, may not surprise the Brexit campaigner who has long accused the BBC of left-wing and Remainer bias. Last year, he vowed to boycott the BBC after being accused by racism and by some in a selected audience on a Question Time special for party leaders before the general election. He said, "Our state broadcaster has behaved like a political actor throughout this election. Reform will be campaigning to abolish the licence fee." But Conor Tomlinson, for me, this is just a step too far now. The BBC is a morally depraved organisation. It has shielded paedophiles throughout its so-called storied history. Until very recently, by the way. And the fact that they are using bodily fluids, you can imagine what, on Nigel Farage's face. I'm sorry, like, this just has to be the end. I'm done. I am done with this organisation.
Yeah, I think the BBC's licence fee should have been forfeit a few hundred abused children ago. Unfortunately, the political polarisation and the climate that we live in, driven by increased ethnic and cultural diversity, ideological capture, and then the BBC's very generous DEI hiring policies that have protected completely incompetent people at all ranges of the institution from accountability on the basis of their skin or sexuality, has led to people who genuinely believe that Nigel Farage is a fascist and aren't tuning into my content or the Lotus Eaters or your show, Dan, who point out that he's actually far more liberal than even his own voters and party members. And so they internalise that belief, and much like the alleged assassin who shot Charlie Kirk for being said fascist, they take their petty revenges in almost Fight Club fashion, you know, piddling in the soup or cutting explicit film reels into children's movies. And so they contaminate the brushes that are going to touch him, hoping to, I don't know, give him some sort of skin condition or at least get one little petty mark of revenge over on them. And this is really the hallmark of quite a wretched person, so this might be a strange link to make, but Dostoevsky wrote a book called Notes from Underground in the 19th century, and it was the profile of the exact kind of like petty bureaucrat who hates themselves, who's antisocial, who's incapable of virtue, and it's just this long monologue about how they hate their own lives and they hate people that are more successful than them. And there's a chapter where one day this army officer who's well respected just walks past him in the street and occasionally just sort of brushes past him. This guy hangs onto it for years. He buys a special coat, plotting the day that he will revenge himself by bumping him back, and that guy will also remember it, and he'll know deep down. And he does it, and the guy doesn't even notice him. And so he goes, "Oh, but I guarantee he knew inside. He was." These are the kind of people that we now have to interact with because of political polarization. They are resentful. They are wretched. They are constantly plotting their revenge against you for things that you haven't even done to them. And so if those people are employed at the BBC, they should be found out. They should be kicked out without pay. I wouldn't be surprised if Farage decides to bring some sort of either criminal charge or private prosecution against a person if it can be proven. And as you said, the BBC have lost all credibility, and licence fee payers shouldn't be giving them a penny anymore.
100%. But this is just an awful psyop, isn't it, against Nigel Farage as well, because now the bloke doesn't even feel like he can be protected in a makeup room, you know, in a studio. It's actually quite horrendous. And of course, this campaign against Nigel Farage is also very public at the BBC, as Mike Irwood posted on Peter Edgy, the man who did this interview claiming anti-Semitic and racist behaviour against Nigel Farage in the school ground when he was 13 or 14 years old, is a TV and film producer, a BAFTA winner, who has, of course, worked for the BBC. And here he was on Newsnight.
Most vivid memories of my school life is Farage repeatedly coming up to me and knowing that I was Jewish, saying Hitler was right and gas him, and that was frequently followed by us, you know, kind of imitating the sound of escaping gas. As the grandchild of a couple who had escaped from Hitler and Nazi Germany, but whose families left behind had perished in the Holocaust, you know, this was extremely wounding and upsetting.
Are they telling the truth? No, they're not telling the truth.
How do you feel watching that?
Really angry.
Do you trust this guy, Connor?
I trust him about as much as I do the question time audience plants the BBC put in ahead of the election, Dan, when Nigel Farage went on, when one of the Doctor Who stagehands was the first person to ask a question, really suck it to Nigel Farage about Brexit. And then there was also a Palestine activist in the audience. I trust it about as much as the Channel 4 PSYOP, where a literal professional actor just showed up campaigning for reform in Clacton and said the most racist possible things on camera when it was undercover, and then it just so happens to have been in the car with the one undercover Channel 4 journalist. I also don't trust him because, and this might be an anodyne point, but has this gentleman in question considered that no matter what Farage said as a juvenile, I mean, he disputes saying it, has he considered that he might have just been a bit of a prick? Because he seems like one. And so I wouldn't be shocked if he was bullied at school. I frankly don't care. I don't. You and your adolescent hurt feelings do not get to mean that I don't get to have a country anymore.
Exactly.
And Nigel Farage, if Nigel Farage was half the bogeyman you thought he was, he would be able to fix it overnight. However, he's not going to be one, and so I'm just not going to take the crocodile tears of the BBC seriously when, one, its demented staff are probably contaminating its makeup brushes to revenge themselves against him, but two, not just the conduct of the BBC, as we've said before, with the long-standing habit of hiring sexual abusers, but also the politics of the BBC that they mask in neutrality, saying they want to throw our borders open, liquidate our culture and impoverish us, popping champagne bottles when Labour won the last election. Yeah, I'm not going to trust anything the BBC puts out. I'm not going to trust anything that they amplify as neutral on their news stations. I think that their offices should have all the lights switched off. They shouldn't be able to give taxpayers money to The Guardian anymore because they're number one buyers of The Guardian, keeping that newspaper's afloat. I think everyone at the BBC should be out of a job, or at the very least, someone like the late Peter Whittle, under a reform government, should have been put in charge and given their charter and make it the kind of state broadcast that we used to have.
Yeah, that would have been an amazing thing. Sane lefty, Paul Embry, I think got this right, Connor, actually. He posted, and he often does, there's something quite unpleasant about the forensic scrutiny of Farage's actions at school. If he did what is claimed, it would have been a deeply unpleasant experience for those on the receiving end. I get that completely. But boys say and do nasty things at school. It happens. I can't see that it is fair to crucify them for it 50 years later when usually they are very different human beings. I mean, I would agree. I would say this is one for Peter Ettigee's counsellor. Do you agree, Connor?
Yeah, it's almost... You would be hard-pressed to find another story that would actually make Nigel Farage, ironically, more sympathetic to the electorate. It's kind of like when they were dredging up all of the things that Donald Trump had said or done in his past. And because he was foul-mouthed or just speaking off the cuff or being frank in private moments, people thought, yeah, I've spoken like that before. I've made edgy jokes with my friends. I've said things that were silly growing up. And if you're going to crucify him for it, then couldn't you crucify me for it too? So therefore, rather than scapegoating him, we're going to give him a bit more forgiveness. And so if the BBC wanted to make Nigel Farage Prime Minister, they would circulate this story. So either this is an elaborate psyop to make Nigel Farage even more likeable to the electorate, or they have such little impulse control and are desperate to stop reform breaking apart the Uni Party that they've put this out there and ultimately shot themselves in the foot.
A massive race row has broken out on the right of British politics after our friend Lucy White, a regular on Outspoken, but also on GB News and Talk TV, posted specifically about Naz Ghani, who was receiving a huge amount of praise from the liberal elites after turning up to preside over the budget wearing a suit and tie. Yet Lucy wrote, today the Deputy Speaker presiding over the budget statement in the UK House of Commons is Naz Ghani. Naz Ghani was born in Kashmir, Pakistan. There should not be a single person born in Pakistan in the UK House of Commons. Cue hysteria From the left, of course, Ava Santina, the awful Ava Santina. Hey, Lucy, just looking for your post about Boris Johnson. Let me know if you find it. Liam Walker, so-called Conservative councillor. Lucy is a racist. No broadcaster should put this racist on TV to spread her despicable hatred. And Bushra Sheikh, of course, saying despicable levels of racism on display here, and particularly the demonisation of anyone linked to Pakistan. Boris Johnson was born in New York, Catherine West in Australia, Yang Yang in China, and many more. She is also a regular guest on GB News and Talk TV. Here was Nazgani on the day, by the way.
The Chancellor is about to make her budget statement, and I expect members and their constituents wish to hear from the Chancellor directly. However, before I call the Chancellor to speak, I nonetheless wish to make a short statement. For a number of weeks, and yet again yesterday, there have been extensive briefings to the media.
So, Lucy White is going to respond to those claims for the first time in just one moment alongside Connor Tomlinson, the host of Tomlinson Talks. But first, this was her explanation on X. Lucy posted, "I seem to have sparked some fiery debate. So I will take the time to respond to some of the comments. Overwhelmingly, people are in agreement with me. As one person sums it up, it's insane that we allow foreigners into our government. Now to break down some of the less logical arguments, starting with Boris Johnson. 1. Did you know that a Bengali tiger born in Siberia remains a Bengali tiger? It does not become a Siberian tiger. The same logic applies to Boris Johnson being born in New York. Boris is ethnically white British. Yes, we know he has a Turkish great-grandfather, Crimea River, and regardless of where in the world Boris would have been born, he would always remain white British, just as a Bengali tiger remains a Bengali tiger, despite being born in Siberia. Nusrat Ghani, being ethnically Pakistani, would always be ethnically Pakistani, whether born in Pakistan, the UK, or anywhere else in the world. She doubled down, saying there should not be a single Pakistani in the UK House of Commons, and here was why. Pakistanis in the UK are by far the most problematic foreign group. Shall I remind you why? The Pakistani rape gangs, terrorist attacks, inhumane halal meat, misogyny, first cousin marriage, and birth defects. Pakistani are the number one nationality claiming asylum in the UK, despite there being no war in Pakistan. Now, that response has also divided the right of British politics, with Samantha Smith, a victim of the Pakistani Muslim rape gangs, writing, "This is racist, Lucy. You don't beat leftist ideology by sinking down to their level. All this does is legitimize their cries of racism." That prompted support, though, from other major figures on the right, like Carl Benjamin, who said, instead of acting like a leftist and screeching racist, why not make the affirmative case as to why people born in Pakistan ought to be governing our country? So, Lucy White, great to give you the opportunity to respond. What do you make of the fact that even people on the right are calling you a racist as a result of your post?
Hey Dan, it's great to be here again.
Great to have you again.
Well, I honestly I find it so entertaining. I think it's fascinating. Some of the comments, and the fact that people are trying to conflate Boris Johnson with Nusrat Ghani is just insane. I mean, as you just mentioned from my post, Boris is ethnically English, ethnically, he's white British, and whether he was born, there or Australia, he's always going to be a white British man. And if I, as Lucy, gave birth prematurely in Japan, that doesn't make my child Japan. But that's
totally. And by the way, this is very personal to me, this one, Lucy, because very often I have people, by the way, they're always assholes on the left, saying to me, "Oh, Dan, just go home. You're an immigrant yourself." And it's like, no. I am a white British human being. All of my ethnicity is as a white Brit, an Englishman, right? And I was born to English-born parents in New Zealand and moved back to my homeland by choice as a 21-year-old. So to claim that I'm an immigrant, which the left do, is utterly ludicrous, yet they'll say that Nazgani is 100% ethnically English. It doesn't make any sense.
No, it doesn't. And what I think startled me the most is the reaction to my post, because if I'm honest with you, Dan, for me, that's just a standard post, which is just obvious. I did not expect it to go viral. The reason as to
3
why
million views it's had now, Lucy.
Yes, just over 3 million views. And I think the reason as to why it went so viral is because people are not used to seeing the truth. You know, these basic truths have been suppressed due to political correctness. And so when you say something so blatantly obvious, people are like, oh my gosh, yes, that's correct. Or, oh my gosh, I'm so shocked, I don't know how to react to it. And the reason why the left-wing people are seethingly angry with me is because I've hit a nerve and I'm absolutely correct and I absolutely stand by what I've said. You know, this is completely true. There should not be a single foreigner in the UK Parliament. It's insane. Any other country in the world, you would not expect there to be foreigners in their parliament or their government. And, you know, even if they were born in our country, I don't care. I don't care. You should be a native to be in the parliament. You know, just as the Japanese get to run their country, or, you know, ironically, the Pakistanis get to run their country. The English, the Welsh, the Scottish, the Northern Irish should be running our country. And I stay on that ground and I'm not moving.
Yeah, and for example, as Lawrence Fox made the point, Lucy, Pakistan's constitution disqualifies anyone who acquires foreign citizenship from serving in parliament, including the National Assembly and Senate. So, you know, this is something which other countries seem to accept without being accused of being racist.
And I'd just like to point out, which is important, I've got my list here. There are actually 5 MPs in our parliament who were born in Pakistan. So yes, Nusrat Ghani, as we all now know, also Afzal Khan, Ayub Khan, Yasmin Kurichi, and Mohammed Yassin were all, you know, there are actually currently 16 Pakistani MPs in the UK Parliament, which is 16 far too many. And 5 of them were born in Pakistan. Like, what on earth is going on here? Partly it's sectarian politics. So they go into very high Muslim areas and they win the Muslim vote, the sectarian voting bloc. We know that the mosques are used as a tool for voting. We saw that with Luftar Rahman, I think his name is, the Bangladeshi in Tower Hamlets, who wrote to the mosques, the imams, and told them all to, you know, vote for him. It was their religious duty. And so that's why democracy fails in a multi-ethnic society, because they vote in their interests, which are not British interests. It's a separate Muslim interest. And going back to Nusgani, you know, we all know about David Cameron's A-list, which is where he encouraged women and particularly ethnic minorities to get into the Conservative Party. So for all those who are screeching at me, oh, she deserved it, oh, she worked hard, well, I'm sorry to tell you, love, but actually she just got in on a DEI policy from David Cameron back in, you know, he started it in 2006. She was elected in 2015. So by then the door was already wide open. It's the same for Priti Patel. She campaigned that the party was racist. So there you have it. These people I don't think they should be in Parliament, and I'm not budging from that position.
Well, I love the fact that you're doubling down. And what's interesting, actually, if you look here, and I've just taken this and just checked this, despite this reaction from the elite class, actually, you haven't been ratioed on this post at all. 3.3 million views, 2,000 replies, but actually 13,000 likes. So the public are backing you here, which is very interesting to me. I do believe, Lucy, though, you've had a lot of private pushback, haven't you, from senior figures within the Conservative Party?
Well, I did get a WhatsApp from one person who isn't ethnically English. So I do think that they are starting to feel threatened because I'm hitting nerves with, you know, it's not just an attack on, I wouldn't even call it an attack. I'm just pointing out the truth. You know, I have a pair of eyes, I can see. I'm not, you know, you're stating the obvious facts and people get defensive about it because it attacks them or they feel threatened by it. But the fact is, you know, this is England. We're not moving from our position. And I would genuinely say I have had more support and more agreement than disagreement. I've had lots of messages of people texting me saying, please keep going, we need you here. Of course, I've been invited to this podcast. I've been invited to one next week. People want to hear the story. And my main message, Dan, is that, you know, as I said, this is also blatantly obvious. I'm now trying to normalize it. You know, people are not stupid. Why is it acceptable for every other country to have their natives ruling in their government, apart from England? And that's unacceptable. We're going to go back to a time. We're going to go back to where it was just, you know, the natives. So if you go to 1997, Tony Blair, that's when the very first non-native entered Parliament. And now I believe we have 88 of them in Parliament. And, you know, we're going to go back to the way it was, whether people like it or not. It's happening.
Okay, let me bring in Connor Tomlinson of Tomlinson Talks. Connor, where do you stand on this? The right's obviously divided. Is, you know, Lucy a horrible racist, or is she spitting facts?
Oh, I'm with her, and I think she should be appointed Parliamentary Standards Officer rather than her impending cancellation from everywhere. But hey, I've had the same thing in the last couple of weeks. Join the club. I also don't think the right are divided on this, Dan. I think this is the Liberals in the Conservative Party who are more obsessed with conserving the GDP over anything else, and so they don't even know what a British person is, and so it's no wonder that those people aren't voting for them. It's also quite interesting that Ghani's constituency is over 95% white English. Now, at the last census, that was the case, so who knows, the Boris wave might have changed it. Oh, and as far as the point for Boris Johnson, if we're deporting him too, believe me, I'm up for it, I need no convincing. But the idea that she accurately represents her constituents, rather than being a diversity hire parachuted into the seat, much like Kemi Badenoch was in Essex's Saffron Walden, is absurd. If you would have asked, if you would have had like Republican-style primaries from the US, the local constituents, which candidate they would have wanted, you wouldn't have got Pakistan-born Naz Ghani. The only place that she could have won is in one of these Pakistani enclaves in places like the Midlands or the various towns afflicted by the Pakistani rape gang scandal. And so I think it's perfectly reasonable to have the same policy that Pakistan does, or that the US does for its presidency, in which President Trump is probably going to bring in for Congress and the Senate very soon, given the damage that the likes of Ilhan Omar has done to Minneapolis, turning it into Little Mogadishu, and make it so that if you don't have the ancestry or heritage of the land, if you're not native to the place, or if you are born abroad, you don't get to serve in its government because you can't accurately represent the interests of the indigenous people, and the risk of foreign loyalties is just too great. And if this happens with Boris Johnson and the Boris wave, it's certainly going to happen with the 25 Muslim MPs and the 16 Pakistani MPs and all of the other foreigners that are in our country and are in our government. So yeah, you just shouldn't be able to serve those people, and I would much rather see Lucy in the House of Commons in her place.
Lucy, what's going to be really interesting to me now, though, is what happens to those, and I know you work for them sometimes, so just kind of so apologies about this, but those gutless sort of establishment right mainstream media organizations, my former employers like GB News and Talk TV, because there's now a campaign for them to see you cancelled, and obviously a lot of us have been cancelled from their air. So number one, have you heard anything from either of those stations, and are you expecting to continue to go on? I mean, I was watching you grill Lily Phillips just last week on GB News.
Yeah, no, I have no fear about being cancelled at all, because, you know, this has happened to me in the past with my Heathrow Airport tweets, which got 5 million views, so even more than this one. You know, again, I stated a simple fact that I don't want to be hearing Hindi in my country. I think that's a very, you know, again, obvious thing to state, but people go crazy when you state these obvious things. Anyhow, I haven't been cancelled from that, even though people called for me to be cancelled. So I don't think it will happen this time.
Good on you. Good on you. Okay, well, look, we've got to have these conversations, I think, and I'm delighted that you didn't do what so many people do in this situation, which is cower and panic and then do the hostage video apology. Oh my God, I didn't really mean that. I didn't really mean that. Please keep hiring me. I didn't really mean that. You haven't done that. You've doubled down. I think it's great.
Yeah, I would like to add, though, what I think is really important about this discussion is what happens next. And so, you know, it's not Nusrat Ghani or any of these MPs that shouldn't be there. It's not their personal fault. It's the fault of the system. So what it means is, you know, we need to look at our constitution. How is it that someone that's foreign born or, you know, not a native is even allowed to be an MP in the first place, or even a local councillor. I think we need to address those issues, which means looking at eligibility and changing that. So I'm all up for it. I'm up for doing a policy push to change it. And of course, the justification, as Conor was explaining, is that when you have dual nationality or another ethnicity, etc., you do have an inherent bias towards that country. And that's why we saw, for example, and I did a post about this recently, while Priti Patel was Home Secretary and while Rishi Sunak was Prime Minister, we had 1 million Indians entering our country between 2019 and 2024. So obviously that's one clear example of an inherent bias. We've had David Lammy, who is Caribbean, advocating for reparations, which is against the British interest, because if David Lammy were really British, then he, as himself, would be the one that would have to pay the reparations. Do you know what I mean? Like, you can't call for reparations and then be the one paying it. So it's just a sort of, it doesn't work. So that is why, as Conor and I are explaining, the natives have the native population's interests at heart. Like, we genuinely care for our people. Neither Conor nor I would be sat here with you today, Dan, if we didn't care about our people and our country. We've seen our country deteriorate into decline, and we are not accepting it. We are standing up, we are putting our foot down, and we are not moving. This is our position. There's many of us behind us in this movement, and we are here to take back our country and make it England again. And that is just not controversial. That's just a return to normality.
Breaking today, the death of a true Great Britain. The New Culture Forum has announced it is with deepest sorrow that we announce the passing of Peter Whittle, founder and director of the New Culture Forum. Peter passed away yesterday evening, surrounded by his loved ones. It is hard to overstate the impact Peter and the New Culture Forum have had on Britain's cultural and political landscape since he founded the NCF 20 years ago. Peter's courage, passion, integrity, wit, and intellect inspired millions in Britain and around the world to think critically, challenge cultural orthodoxies, and champion free speech. The NCF will continue to honour Peter's vision and values. Rest in peace. Now, this is going to be a shock to so many of you. Certainly for me, it's personally devastating. I became friends with Peter quite recently, actually, about 2 years ago, after we met when I was at rock bottom at Laura Dodsworth's wedding. And he was an absolutely wonderful man, and he had invited me to his wedding earlier in the year, which then sadly had to be brought forward when he got the terrible, terrible news. That was the last time I saw him in what felt like a really positive appearance just a few weeks ago. So this sudden decline has shocked us all. But Peter, as you would expect, was incredible and stoic and brave till his last breath. Indeed, I want to show you now his last public speech made this month on the 4th of November. It was inspirational. Watch.
If you remember the line from Twelfth Night, William Shakespeare, when love goes, what happens next? It's usually tears and a journey. And I think that that's what actually happened in my case. But this is what gives me hope, actually. We started the New Culture Forum 20 years ago. I wouldn't have thought, I would say to you, I wouldn't have thought we would be having a locals branch conference meeting about London 20 years later, this well attended, and with the kind of influence that we increasingly have on the political sphere in this country. So that's down to you bothering. And I want to thank you for that. And, you know, just whatever you do, don't give up. Don't give up.
We won't, Peter. But what is so tragic is it does feel like we have been robbed from a man who had yet to reach his peak, and he was going to be such an important part in terms of the salvation of the United Kingdom over the next few years. Now, of course, Peter Whittle in his past was the right-hand man of Nigel Farage, and indeed, when he was in the London Assembly, and this clip I want to show you is from 5 years ago, one of his greatest hits, he always had the measure of Sadiq Khan.
What I do feel very passionate about is somebody basically coming in and essentially saying, I am going to, or this commission is going to start, as you put it, deciding which legacies should be celebrated and which shouldn't be. No one has the right to do that. And I think it is extraordinary at a time when this city is facing almost extinction level event economically, largely as well down to many of the things you've done, such as congestion charge and all of that, that actually now you start attacking its heritage. And the councils that you refer to are Labour ones, 130 of them up and down the country. We all know, do we not, Mr. Mayor, that your party doesn't really like patriotism, doesn't really like Britain very much, wouldn't you say?
That's quite a slur, but coming from you it's no surprise. We're a very patriotic party. I'm very proud of the achievements.
Disgraceful, Chair. Will you
proud.
reprimand that Assembly member? That's an absolute disgrace.
No,
he should be immediately reprimanded. That's an insult to the Mayor. It's an insult to Labour members of this Assembly.
No. Listen, Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
At the very time when this city is facing what it's facing, it is extraordinary that you are now concentrating on setting up something to revise its past history.
Well, Chair, that's a characterisation I don't accept.
Right, well, Mr. Mayor, all I can say is that the one consolation is that it's very unlikely that anyone's going to be putting up a statue to you.
6 months ago, here on Outspoken, after Douglas Murray was ambushed on Newsnight, Peter Whittle proved how brilliant he was at calling out the regime media.
I think the thing about this, though, is what it showed was why programs like Newsnight are not watched anymore. They're terrible, right? They're terrible. They learn nothing. I mean, Douglas, frankly, I think they were lucky to have him actually on the program. And when they got these three people, Matthew Stadlin, who might have been up against a number of times, and Joe Swinson, or whatever her name is, I don't know who the other person was, but these are non-entities. These are political non-entities. Yeah. Right? Yeah. I mean, and, of no consequence whatsoever. And to see them kind of trying to maul him, in the safety of this bubble was quite pathetic. I mean, I think that despite, what we saw there, I mean, Douglas gets his points across very, very well. And I think there'll be a lot of people nodding along with it. But I mean, fact is, this is the BBC all over, not just, I have to say, the BBC now, as you know well, that essentially BBC might be the leader of the pack, but you've got Sky, which is pretty much the same now, ITV, they've got, all of them have got agendas. So they sort of think they've got, they're looking for a gotcha moment. In that case with Douglas there, Nick Watt, he was sort of saying, you said we need less Islam. Point that Douglas was making and has made before, and I would agree with entirely, is, look, the more Islamic demographic you have, the greater the chance of extremism, the greater the chance of terrorist attacks, the greater the chance. It's just simple fact. It's common sense.
Peter's final appearance on Outspoken just 3 months ago was to promote his brilliant documentary about the decline of Bournemouth, as he called out Islamist shows of dominance.
But in the case of Bournemouth, people have actually tried to do something. There is a kind of citizens group that's been formed, a security group, to try to patrol the town. And, now that we've highlighted the case, hopefully more will be done. The piece of clip you're showing here of this call to prayer.
I mean, what did you make of it? Because this has gone viral across the world, Peter, this clip.
Well, because Yes, this happened, I think, just only last week or so. So, in other words, after we'd done this program. But when you look at it, all I see there is basically a show of dominance. I see, why cannot people be told you can go to your local mosque, or if you can go to the mosque if you're here for the day. There are mosques in Bournemouth. Go there and pray. Why do you have to do this outside? No other religion does this. Why do you have to do this? And it is, I would say, like it's increasingly the case in European countries, a show, a presence, a show of dominance. And yes, I don't like to see it. I don't like to see it. And I think that if you were down there on the beach with your family, I think your instinctive reaction, which then many people then cover up, remember, but your instinctive reaction would be one of discomfort. Why are you doing this? Why are you bringing in something to a completely sort of neutral and innocent setting of this, seaside town?
And I'm joined now by Connor Tomlinson, who is, of course, the host of Deprogrammed, a New Culture Forum podcast. And Connor, I'm so glad you're here today. I mean, I'm in black because we got the news this morning and I just felt I had to do something. And my condolences for you, not just in terms of the loss of Peter, but you also discovered overnight that your 79-year-old grandfather, there he is, Londoner, born and bred, had also passed away. So thank you for getting through the show, and the floor is yours to pay tribute to both men.
Yeah, I'm sorry for the slightly more cynical or somber tone. I'm usually a bit funnier on your show, Dan, but not today. It's a sign that an entire generation is passing away, and it's the greatest tragedy that's the best one that they're going first. As I put in my words on Peter's passing on X, we at the New Culture Forum have known that Peter hasn't been well for quite some time. He kept it to himself. He's a very stoic man and a showman through and through. He was always more a Soho man than a Barra boy when he was cavorting with the UKIP crowd. So public appearances were of great importance to him, but he didn't tell anyone until October that he was unwell, and he actually made it past the day that the doctors had given him, so we got more time with him than we expected. But he was rushed into hospital in the last week or so and couldn't make the Smith lecture the other night, unfortunately, the sort of annual lecture, and Rafe gave a really fitting tribute to him in his absence, not knowing how little time we had left. But we've known he's been unwell for quite some time, and obviously the conversation has been, how do we continue NCF in his honor? Because Peter is one of the few men that I've met in my time in politics who is chiefly concerned with legacy rather than the present, because he, again, has been one of the few men who has paid opportunities forward and tried to cultivate not just a new discourse around culture rather than just economics, as was the time in the early 2000s, but also this ecosystem of young people who are really concerned about their country and giving them opportunities to voice those concerns. And it's been with Harrison Pitt, Charlie Downs, myself, Lewis Brackpool, even Poppy Coburn got her start at NCF before she went onto the Telegraph and now appears on Newsnight. And so Peter has, we've had these conversations about how to honour him, and being frank with everyone, I hope I don't get in trouble with my NCF colleagues here, we are not sure what the actual future of NCF is yet, because it's impossible to imagine NCF without Peter, because he built it, he's the central figure. I mean, the main show is called Whittle, for crying out loud. And politics and the world is all the poorer for it. And the same goes for my granddad, which, look, I'm a stone-hearted person, but it's been a rough day. And much like Peter, born in London, brought up around the same area, and they've seen the country disfigured over their lifetimes. And my granddad, Peter didn't have any children, but my granddad, 4 kids, 6 grandkids. We were hoping he might meet his first great-grandchild next year, but not meant to be. And you could set your watch to any time I dropped in for a coffee, how quickly the conversation would come around to, have you seen the state of the country? Have you seen how this mob are running the place? there's a reason that that fence has been put up outside Parliament to prevent revolution, because my granddad would have been knocking the door down the first one. And he was very worried about the fact that very few people of his age who have made such a mess of things care about cleaning it up. So the only thing we can do is continue in their stead. I mean, Peter was a guest on your show, Dan. My granddad watched it all the time, not just when I was on. So it's, it's a testimony to your skills as a broadcaster rather than mine, I think. And he actually, ironically, he got up at 5 o'clock in the morning this morning, mopped the floors, sat down with a cup of tea, and put YouTube on. I have no idea what he was watching, but there's half a chance it was either something from me or something from you.
Let's hope it was Tomlinson talks.
Well, yeah. But the only way we can honour these people is by continuing to act on the concerns that they feel, that they hold quite deeply, but that they've felt for a very long time no one else shares. And if for nothing else, if we go down with a ship, if it's all for naught, we try and save something in honour of them.
Indeed. Very well put, Connor. It is just worth looking at how Peter Whittle has done something that maybe many people thought would be impossible. He has united the right today in grief. I want to take you through some of the tributes, because what you'll notice is these come from all parts of the spectrum, which I think is a testament to Peter, given how divided the right is. Tom Slater posted from Spiked Online, "So sad to hear of Peter's passing. A man who truly left his mark, was always tremendous fun and a Londoner through and through. My deepest condolences to his family, friends and colleagues." From Colin Brazier, "Peter was someone who saw a world disappearing before his eyes and decided to do something about it. A great and honourable man." Paul Embry on the left, "This is very sad. I had the pleasure of being interviewed by Peter on a couple of occasions. A very decent man." From the Free Speech Union, "We are very sorry to hear about the death of Peter Whittle. Many members of the Free Speech Union are fans of Peter's work with the New Cultural Forum and its trenchant defence of free speech. Our thoughts are with Peter's loved ones at this sad time." Julia Hartley-Brewer of Talk TV, "This is very sad news. Peter Whittle was a genuinely lovely man who cared passionately about his country. A great loss. My condolences to his family and loved ones." Maya Tusi in the independent media, "Our good friend Peter Whittle passed away last night. He was one of the kindest men I knew in Westminster's political and cultural circles. A formidable and critical thinker whose New Cultural Forum made a huge impact. We at 2CTV will miss you." From Martin Daubney at GB News, "Desperately sad news and way too soon. One of the sharpest minds you'll ever meet. Debonair, handsome, charming, erudite. Peter will be so sadly missed by friends, colleagues and country. RIP legend." And from Alison Pearson of the Daily Telegraph, "Britain is better for Peter Whittle having lived. His death deprives our country of one of its most brilliant, courteous and debonair defenders. Such sad news. May his example inspire us to fight for what matters as Peter did with every breath." From Rupert Lowe of Restore Britain, "Desperately sad news about Peter Whittle. He was a good man." From Lawrence Fox of Reclaim, "What a huge loss. Rest in peace to one of the vanishingly few genuine gentlemen in the political and cultural arena. Peter was always there, always put others first, and will remain an example to us all. Godspeed, dear friend." From Carl Benjamin of Lotus Eaters, "I am terribly saddened to hear about the passing of Peter. He was a stalwart of the patriot movement, complete gentleman and wonderful chap to be around. I have always had a lot of time for Peter and the New Culture Forum. My thoughts are with them in the wake of this devastating news." And then from Reform UK, Lee Anderson's, "Really sad news. One of my favourite interviews since being an MP was with Peter, a desperately sad day." And from Richard Tice, the Deputy Leader of Reform UK, "Desperately sorry to hear this tragic news. Peter was so committed, so thoughtful, so passionate in his work and such a patriot. He will be much missed by family and friends and a loss to us all." And so I think, Connor, that is a testament, isn't it, when you look at all sides of the political right in the UK coming together to mark this loss.
It is. And I'm sure Peter would have been honoured by that. And I hope what I'm about to do isn't graceless, Dan. But it does annoy me to see Richard and Lee post that. Not because they're particularly guilty of this, but I must say that Peter put a lot of faith in reform, actually. They'd asked him to be a candidate before at the last election, and he had declined just because he didn't think he was right for it at the time anymore. He spent a lot of time in the London Assembly. He thought that his work was better spent on New Culture Forum. But after the election, he invited a lot of reform spokespeople on the NCF onto Whittle to talk to him, including Zia Youssef, including Lena Cunningham. We'd invited Lee Anderson, by the way, and Lee Anderson had agreed to do deprogrammed and then scheduled it multiple times and allowed it to fall through. But Zia Youssef and Lena Cunningham in particular, they had accepted and then committed to a date and then let Peter down multiple times because they didn't want to go on the New Culture Forum because they were afraid it was too far right. So perhaps allow this to be a lesson. It turns out that you can keep putting things off until the people who would slander someone like Peter might think it's respectable to do. You can keep putting it off and letting someone like that down who has had your back, or you can accept the opportunity when it's given to you. And I advocate for doing the latter and not being a coward, because it turns out that you can keep putting it off and then eventually that interview never gets done because the man is gone. So perhaps your tributes, I appreciate the tributes for Peter. I'm sure Peter's family appreciates it. Everyone at the NCF appreciates it. But I will note that not all of the people, not all the parties, etc., always had Peter's back when he had theirs. And so perhaps allow this to be an example to have the back of your friends rather than fearing having negative opinions for associating with them from your enemies. Perhaps have a little bit of courage. That's maybe one of the things that people should take away from Peter's passing.
Couldn't agree more. And I think you've actually put that really appropriately. And they won't get that opportunity again to sit down with Peter Whittle, you know, and that is a lost opportunity for them. And I think it should be a wake-up call. But Connor, massive condolences about your double loss today. Thank you for still being here. It was so important to pay tribute to both Peter Whittle and your late grandfather as well. So thank you so much. Very sad day. Okay. It's time to reveal our worst Briton in the world this week. And your nominees: from Monday, Zach Polanski, the Green Party leader; on Tuesday, Bob Villan; on Wednesday, Rachel from Accounts; and on Thursday, David Lammy. To your feedback. Ollie Locke 987 says, Lammy wants to stop trial by jury. That is straight out of the dictatorship textbook. Colin Roscoe Hawksworth says, Lammy, because budgets come and budgets go, but to stop using trial by jury is to take away a right that is just wrong and very worrying for the future of British justice. Blasting Weevil 2968 says, Lammy should be sectioned. He is clearly insane trying to remove a jury trial. Why? So that they can pay corrupt judges more to let people off. The whole point of a jury is that no one person can be bought. Yark Pure Blood says, Pascal Robinson Foster, Bob Villan from the mean streets of Norwich tops the 4 this week. But Data 7 says, Rachel Reeves' big day, but then Kemi Badenoch blew out her candles and nicked the cake. Okay, your results are in. And I'm going to be honest with you, we've had over 50,000 votes, and it wasn't even close this week. In 4th position, with 7% of the vote, Bob Villan. In 3rd position, with 8% of the vote, Zach Polanski. The runner-up, with 13% of the vote, David Lammy. But the worst Briton in the world this week, even her own relatives have come out against this budget with 72% of the vote. It is Rachel Reeves. Okay, we're moving over to Substack now for the Royal Uncancelled After Show with According to Taz. You can join us there, of course. And actually, we've got a discount link for you today because it is Black Friday. Dan Wootton, outspoken.com/sale. It's our biggest ever discount, 35% off. So I would love you to come and join our Substack family. We will be back with you 5 p.m. UK time on Monday, midday Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. Hit subscribe if you're watching on YouTube. Do subscribe to our podcast as well, which is available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. Let's think about Peter Whittle, the great Peter Whittle, this weekend. And most importantly, I promise to keep fighting for you.